Hello and welcome to Pursuit 365's show on spirituality. I'm your host, Rani Sanghera, psychedelic guiding coach, registered yoga teacher, and somatic body healer. Today, my guests are Dana Harvey. She is the founder of the Flourish Academy, and I have Peg Peters, CEO of Gathering Groups. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thanks a lot for having us.
Yeah. Let's start with both of you maybe telling me a little bit about yourself. Peg, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I have been married for 34 years. I have four grown daughters. They're in their 20s. And my wife and I started Gathering Groups, which is a retreat center out in the Fraser Valley here, just under an hour east of Vancouver. It's a psychedelic retreat center, and we really specialize in working with groups. My wife's a therapist and an elementary school teacher, and we've developed this model of working with groups of 6 to 8 people with two facilitators or therapists, and we prep them for 8 weeks prior to the retreat, and then we bring them here for a 2-night overnight retreat with psilocybin. And then we integrate them for 4 weeks after that. And so we've been doing this model for about 3-4 years now. And we're excited to be working with Health Canada on a clinical trial. We can talk about that a little bit later. But that's a little bit about who I am right now. And I've done lots of things in my past and worked in Ethiopia, building community and working in clean water systems, and been a professor of world religions and an ordained minister. And now I'm working with plant medicine and really, really loving it. And so, yeah. And I get to work with Dana, who is is on our team. And so throwing over to you, Dana, a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, I guess I am a recovering crash and burner of the corporate ladder. About 5 years ago, I was actually working for Psychedelics Company, a publicly traded psychedelics company, as their CCO and head of investor relations, kind of ticking all the boxes of what we outwardly call success. But I was really struggling inside. I was overworking, not taking care of myself. Not working maybe in alignment with some of my ethics. There were just things that were out of whack, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I just felt stuck. I felt like things that used to inspire me were bringing me anxiety. And I didn't even I felt shame because I did tick the boxes of everything looked fine. How could I possibly not be feeling good inside? And then through my own use with plant medicines, I had some really big awakenings and shifts and transformations in my life. They saw me resigning from my corporate career that I'd built for over 30 years and diving headfirst into a plant medicine work, training, learning, apprenticing, being mentored until I felt, and my mentors agreed, I was at a point where I could kind of hang out a shingle to support other people in this work. I started out particularly helping other people like me learn about and embrace the practice of microdosing. Since then, I've done a lot of things in the realm of psychedelics, a lot of work with women. I founded Sisters in Psychedelics, Vancouver Women in Psychedelics. And I support people in preparation, experience, and integration. In my roles, many of my roles were bringing together a lot of players in the psychedelic space. So the above ground, the below ground, the shamans, the therapists, the doctors. And then as I was continuing to work on my personal growth, one of the things that I did was I joined a gathering group for my own personal development. And my eyes were just really opened wide, where I thought, I've learned a lot about different models, and this one has got something really, really special to it. Really strong emphasis on preparation, preparing our nervous systems, mind, body, spirit, making this the safest way to approach psychedelics. It brings in indigenous teachings and land-based learnings, kind of two-eyed seeing, and then the integration support afterwards. I thought, this is something that I could really get behind. I believe in this model. I've used it for myself. I want to help get this out to others. So I ended up training as a facilitator with Gathering Groups. I've been facilitating with them for over, a year and a half maybe now, and eventually joining the leadership team as well, just from this passion that I've felt by seeing and experiencing the transformations that this model brings to people around the world.
Mm-hmm.
I love that it's a 12-week program and that you've got so much emphasis on the preparation. Everyone is always talking about integration, and it is important. We can talk about that after, but let's talk about prep and why prep is so important. And you're spending several weeks on
Eight,
this, right?
8 weeks. Yeah.
8 weeks on
Yeah.
prep. So let's talk about the philosophy behind it and
Mm.
tell me why you've decided to go that route.
Well, I think it's such a great question because most people don't pick up on that nuance of what we're doing and why. And it's a really, really important conversation to have. And so I'll approach it from two angles, and then Dana can jump in anytime too. One, it's historical. So we know that these medicines have been used for thousands of years. And so for us, many of us that come new to this, we kind of go, hey, Johns Hopkins is doing some clinical trials. Let's take a look at what their clinical trial model is and try to replicate that, right? That's a very Western, research-based, very masculine way to do it. So it's two therapists and one individual. And I get it. For a clinical trial, you need to take out all the variabilities and you need to just look at what is this medicine doing, right? But this medicine is not like a Tylenol. It fits, like, oh, I've got some kind of problem and you take this medicine, right? It's a very, very different medicine. It really works with set and setting. So first of all, historically, we need to look back. How have these medicines been used historically? And when we do that, we realize that indigenous communities have used these medicines for thousands of years. And some would argue that these medicines how we evolved as human beings to become these conscious, aware beings. It's that these 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 incredible substances have co-evolved alongside of us. And so when you look at indigenous cultures, they have rites of passage, they have initiation, they have these ceremonies where they use them, and they always have a prep. They always have a prep, and minimum, and this is what's really minimum, is 6 months. So almost any indigenous community says, you want to do this medicine work? Well, you're on a journey now for 6 months to get ready for your experience that's going to happen. In ancient Greece at Eleusis, which I visited last summer, in Eleusis, that they had a 2,000-year-old tradition of using psychedelics. They would drink something called the kukion, and this was started in about 1800 BC. So for 2,000 years, every year in September, up to 5,000 people would come to the temple to drink this psychedelic drink to face their mortality, to be able to go to kind of do a descent into the darkness and come out the next day. Well, they had 6 months to prepare for this in community, right? So we've got 2,000-year-old traditions that have showcased that you need to prepare your body for these medicines. This isn't just like some kind of therapy. This is a somatic experience for your body, and you need to do that. And in many cultures, particularly in Mazatec, who have really lots of understanding of how to work with the plant medicine in Mexico, the ayahuasca traditions, they use something called dietas. Now, these are basically plants that you're going to eat and diets that you have to do months in advance to clear out sugar, alcohol, toxins, meat, all of these other things, so that your body is prepared for this altered state experience. So that's the first thing, is historically you have to prepare your body and everything before you do this. So that's kind of we really take that seriously. But secondly, what we're discovering in modern science is that this is really about nervous system co-regulation. And there's a concept from polyvagal theory. So Steve Porges and others have really understood that mammals, that's like us, right? That our nervous systems, we regulate our nervous systems in a group. We are social creatures. And so when we're in a group and we can see their eyes, we can see your mouth, we can see you smiling, our nervous system begins to get attuned. And we kind of connect in, and we call this part of our brain the limbic system. The limbic system in our brain starts firing when we're in a circle and we're seen and safe by other people. And that process of co-regulating a nervous system, we argue, and just from our experience, takes a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks. of weekly exposure to a group of people with this kind of process, so that by the time they get to the retreat, their nervous systems are regulated. They have a sense of connection with the people that they're going to be doing this medicine with. These aren't strangers they met last night. Like I dropped into some ayahuasca retreat and there's people from all over the world flew in. I don't know anyone here, but I'm about to do the biggest transformation of my life. And my nervous system feels scared because I don't know these people. So I actually think that's not actually ethically right for our Western culture to be able to do that. I think we need process that slows this medicine down so that we can begin to titrate vulnerability with each other so that we feel ready to do these big open experiences, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, historically, and I think science is showing us that if we're going to do this work, we've got to co-regulate nervous systems prior to dropping into altered states. Dan,
Right.
anything you'd add to that?
I just think that nervous system regulation is such a big point of the preparation that we do. Trust, be open, let go are kind of the mantras around psychedelics. But how can you do that if you're nervous about meeting people for the first time? You've just been dropped into a group. If you've never done this medicine before, you don't know what to expect. There's so many reasons for our nervous system to be out of whack as we go into the medicine ceremony. And so one of the greatest things that we do through our preparation is preparing our nervous systems, as well as giving our participants tools and practices that they can bring into the journey. So when challenging things come up or when things aren't going the way that they expect them, how can they anchor themselves in their breath? How can they go into a mindful state? How can they accept the language of the mushroom, which is really somatic and emotional? And we spend so much time in our minds. So our preparation includes a lot of getting into our bodies and a lot of getting into our emotions. And I really feel that there's a couple of things. First of all, I think preparation is integration. It's the first step of integration. It's getting yourself ready and knowing what you're going to be doing after the journey too, considering that. And then the other thing that I think that we miss a lot is we hear a lot about set and setting in the psychedelic world. So making sure that your setting is conducive to a psychedelic experience, making sure your mindset is in the right place for a psychedelic experience. But I think when we're talking about set and setting, in most cases, that is not preparation. That is assessing on the day or leading up, like assessing, am I in the right mind space? Assessing, is this set up for me? Not preparing your mind space. And as I said, you need to prepare a lot more than your mind space, your body, your emotions, your nervous system. And I think that's why our participants experience such profound transformations, because they are open and ready.
Yeah, I love that. And when you have your participants coming through, do you offer them a different type of diet, or do you suggest that they remove foods, or is any of that part of the prep for you?
It hasn't been specific, in a very specific way. I've noticed that particularly when I work with men and when I work in men's groups, and a lot of men that are dealing in our culture with trauma have turned to the one drug that is celebrated in our culture called alcohol, and that is the opposite on the kind of spectrum of what psychedelics are. So, and what I mean by that is alcohol is a suppressant. It's going to push down feelings, right? These feelings I don't want, I've got to use alcohol to suppress. Psychedelics are open. They open up the feeling states. So they're really opposite, right? And so these medicines don't work well together. They do not play well. Psychedelics and alcohol are like oil and water. So when I talk with men, I'll say, if you really want to engage in this process, I would ask if you'd be open to maybe not drinking the week before your trip. And it's up to you. You can do whatever you want, and we're not going to be prescriptive in saying you have to. But what I say to them is, notice then the feelings. Notice the anxiety that comes up on a Wednesday night when you can't just turn to your bourbon and you go, oh, the kids are driving me crazy and I'm going to take 3 shots of the bourbon, right? And we kind of laugh because it's a kind of funny thing, but this is a problem in our culture because we have not equipped men to be able to deal with any of us, but I'm talking about men because this is the people I know well. we have not equipped men to deal with emotions. We've given them a drug that tells them, you can just shove this down more. Take 3 or 4 more of these, and you don't have to feel this anymore. And then they wonder why. Hey, I'm not showing up for my wife the way she wants. My children feel like I'm disengaged, right? So if I could, I would say, let's eliminate alcohol completely from this process. I would love that. But we have a billion-dollar industry pumping alcohol into people all over our planet, and I don't think it's going to stop. So it's the most addictive, destructive, and I like beer, like I do. I love beer. I love IPAs, but I'm just telling you, as far as war on drugs, it's such an irony to me that we have taken this war on drugs mentality from the 70s and put psychedelics as a Schedule 1 narcotic on level with cocaine and heroin, to a non-addictive plant medicine. And alcohol, no, it's legal, promoted. We get to have shirts, sponsor children's events. Yay to alcohol, boo to psychedelics. Like, what an absurd idea in our culture.
Yeah, it's such a good question, Rani. And I do know that there are some specific medicines like ayahuasca where dietas are prescribed as part of the preparation. But I do feel as a best practice, to think about, you do want yourself to be as clear and open as a vessel when you're consuming any kind of psychedelic. So, if you can, stick to whole foods, stay away from things like red meat that your body needs a lot of energy to digest, stay away from alcohol as well. And also think about what you're consuming intellectually as well. Like, we know psychedelics are non-specific amplifiers, so we don't need to be consuming anything that could be distressing to us in the days leading up to a psychedelic ceremony. So things like, do you really need to listen to the news every day the week before? Or if there's certain situations or people that are triggering for you in your life, could you avoid them during the week before? So just kind of thinking about that holistic consumption and just creating as clear of a channel through your whole person as you can.
Yeah,
it's a great point, Dana, because I've had a couple of people on their own say, "Hey, Peg, I'm for the week prior to, I'm going to detox from social media." They took all the apps off their phone for that week because they really didn't want to have all this stuff flooding their doom scrolling mind, because if psychedelics amplify what's already in us, right? So if you just consume all this junk from social media and then you take a big psychedelic, it's going to manifest all that stuff. So they said, I just gone cold turkey, took it all off, nothing. And their experience was really deeply spiritual and powerful in ways that in the past, when they didn't do that, it wasn't. It was, cumbersome and hard and sometimes really a tricky journey. So I think I'm more interested in people detoxing from social media than I almost from anything else. So if you want to detox, do that for a week and see how it goes for you, right?
Yeah. Well,
great point
we're
there,
talking about regulating our nervous systems. Getting off of socials is going to be a really huge one for people, for sure. Let's talk about the active session or just leading up to it. Do you get your clients to use any sort of intention? Do they have something that they're going in to specifically work on, or do they allow the plant medicine to reveal whatever is going to be coming up for them? Because sometimes the medicine just has its own agenda and it goes, no, actually, I think you need to look at this, not that.
I would say that the whole 8 weeks that we are working with our groups is part of helping them to define their intention. It's helping them to explore themselves and their lives and their joys and their griefs and their traumas, so that they can, narrow down exactly what they want to get out of this medicine journey. And we work on it for the whole 8 weeks. And then as we get closer and closer, we work collectively as a group to try and narrow down the intentions to something that is quite specific, although it can be non-specific. Specific as in, we do bring it down to maybe like 3 or 4 words or sentences that they can use as an anchor during the journey. So if they need to kind of be reminded of why they're doing this, they have like something simple to grasp. But the intentions that people bring in can be as broad as show me where my blocks are, show me what I need to know, right down to very, very specific things dealing with past traumas, dealing with ancestral trauma, dealing with mood disorders, things like that. So, Peg, anything from you on that?
Well, yeah, I really like that you brought up this idea of like it's a process, right? Using these 8 weeks, and so what I've found is that rather than saying, I'm a lone individual that's quote traumatized and I need to get my trauma, fixed or something like that. This is a group process. So what we're realizing is that when I'm in a group, I have things triggered by all the other people in my group, right? That person said something weird last week and I kind of felt something, and that person said something. And so what you're realizing week after week is that this group of people actually reveals so much about, what's going on inside of me, right? And so so if someone might have an intention week 1 of like, I'm going to do this. By week 8, they're realizing, oh, man, this process, I didn't realize this is what I really need to be exploring, right? And is maybe it's, deep process of grief that I need to grieve parts of my life that I never really got the love and attention that I needed as a child. I was, I was left to myself a lot, and there's some grief that needs to be felt there, or there might be some trauma that needs to be felt, or a part that needs to be explored. So we introduce internal family systems as a model. We introduce something called RAIN, which is Tara Brock, a mindfulness teacher. She introduces this acronym RAIN: recognize, allow, investigate, nurture, as a process of working with uncomfortable emotions that we don't want to feel. And so we teach people these tools of welcoming in emotions and then sitting with them. Oh, anger, you're here. Interesting. Like a friend coming over for dinner, uninvited. And we open the door and say, okay, come on in. We're going to have a conversation. And so we teach them that process so that when they get to the psychedelic experience, to the dosing, that they have these tools on their tool belt ready to go, so that when big experiences come up in the journey, they can default back to, right, I'm going to do some RAIN right now. I'm going to recognize this. I'm going to allow it. I'm going to investigate. I'm going to get curious. Then I'm going to nurture that part of me that maybe felt those really hard things when I was 10. Or whatever, right? And so we give these tools, and that helps people create the intentions in a kind of a communal setting. So we think intentions are important, but as you rightly pointed out, often you get into into the medicine itself, and something completely different comes up for you, and you're like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I guess I'm dealing with ancestor trauma, stuff that's been passed down from my grandparents to my parents to me, and I really need to unhook from this, right? And so yeah. So anyways, that's kind of how we see those processes as unfolding.
And what we've seen time and time again is intentions are powerful and offer a lot of guidance. And the medicines always give you what you need, which can be completely different from an intention. But when we're integrating with our participants afterwards, they're realizing like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that is what I needed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're setting them up with the tools, so when something like that does come up, that they are ready for it. It's kind of like when you go to give birth the first time and they make you do a birthing plan, and no one tells you should probably just rip it and throw it out.
Exactly.
It helps you feel like you have some control over something, but then you go in and it's completely different than what you had ever even imagined.
Absolutely. Great analogy.
Yeah, it's hard and it's beautiful, but you taught all the tools on how to manage through it. So
Yeah.
very similar. So let's talk about the actual ceremony and the day of. Can you talk me through some of that?
Yeah, sure. So again, folks arrive on a Friday night for a 2-night retreat. And on the Friday, we'll do a little circle, and we really talk about. We introduce tools of grounding. So they'll bring usually an object that's important to them, and something tangible for that they can hold, like a rock or a crystal, or something that maybe is special to them. And what we've found is that they share then what is this pillar of strength that they're bringing, and it allows them to kind of get into their story a little bit. So we do that on the Friday night, and then on the Saturday, which is a dosing day, we do a circle in the morning. We share our intentions, and we witness each other. We allow the group to feel into each person's goal and intention, and we really want to create an atmosphere whereby the group is holding each other, feeling like, I'm in this for you. I'm really supporting you as you do your journey. The rest of us are looking at you, saying, you go, almost like cheerleading them as a team, right? That team format, or that team dynamic of entering into each person's intention, is really an important part of the prep for us on the Saturday. And then we'll do a ceremony, bring them to the mats. We have our mats in a circle with their heads in the middle, so like spokes coming out. And it just has this beautiful energetic connection. And so we'll do a ceremony. We have a song, and we sing. We do a little bit of a song, and we give some tribute to the 7 directions, the elements on the land that we're on. We have a deep connection with some Stolo First Nations people that we work with as some of our teachers, and they're out of the Fraser Valley here. And so we honor them and honor the land and the lineage of plant medicine work on this land. And we're so lucky to have these partnerships and connections with these Indigenous peoples in this area. And so we do that, and then people will drink tea that they have helped make. And we use a tea. And then they drop in with eye shades and headphones. It's on a synchronized playlist that's been put together for this group. And so everyone's on the same playlist. They drop in. The experience is about maybe 4.5 to 5 hours. And we allow them to, we have 4 space holders in the room, sometimes 5 if it's a really big group. And we allow them to either have an individual experience on their own mat. Some people want to sit up. Some people want to stand up and go outside for a bit. So we bring a space holder with them. Sometimes they just need to get on the grass and ground and feel some energy, because psilocybin has waves. It has 4 particular peaks throughout the whole experience. And so often in these peak experiences, people need to discharge energy, right? They need to feel some grounding by a tree, or sometimes they need to, to feel some rage. They need to boundary some energy, right? So we allow them to expel that and then bring them back into the container and allow the next process to go. Sometimes they need to workshop and talk something out. They do a little bit of parts work with a therapist and then go back into the medicine. So we really have this very active experience with the medicine. And we really work hard prior to the weekend of getting a really good understanding of consent to touch, because touch in a psychedelic experience is a really important part of the process, and yet it's fraught with ethical violations all over the place, right? We've seen this in the MAPS clinical trial where we've had people taken advantage of. One thing that we really are proud of is that this is a group experience. So we have 8 to 10 people in the room at all the time. So there's no one like pulling people out into separate rooms by themselves. We always have, a group people around. And so we work with people on what do they feel comfortable, right? Hands, shoulders, feet, head. Sometimes just a gentle, a hand on the head is just really grounding. Some people need pressure against their feet because it's a deeply somatic medicine. They want to push against something, right? And that helps them discharge kind of deep kind of energy in their legs, right? Some people just need a handheld, and they would raise their hand and we'd come and hold their hand. And some people want no touch. They just say, hey, we negotiate that ahead of time, and they just say, this is a really internal journey for me. I'd rather not have any touch. And that's totally great, right? So depending upon the person, we navigate that consent way before they take medicine, and then we have a plan. and we have it public. We have it visible. Who needs, who wants what form of touch, and then when the sessions are over, we bring them back together. We have a dinner together. We eat together. We then usually go outside for a bit of grounding exercise. And then we end the evening with kind of an integration sharing circle. Sometimes we do it outside around a fire. But we really encourage people to come back into a community and to bring some voice to what they experience. So that kind of takes you through the day.
Yeah, I could add a couple things, just framing them on our values. So, there's basically three things that we honor. We honor community. So we've talked a lot. I mean, you get the sense of that community. But one of the things that we do in that community element is on the Friday night. Now, so we are a harm reduction site. So on the Friday night, the people have their mushrooms, the participants have their mushrooms, and they all gather around the table together. And we take some time to commune with the mushrooms, touch them, feel them, hold them, hold their own mushrooms that they have, and then chop them up, weigh them, chop them up, put them into the tea. It's like an arts and crafts community kind of thing at the end of the evening that is just so beautiful. And we've just seen, we have a incredible person that provides our participants as well. So it's so safety, or sorry, community. Secondly, we honor safety. So we've heard, one of the greatest things that we do is we have one space holder for every 2 participants. In group ceremony, that's almost unheard of. But these are fully trained. At least 2 or 3 are registered clinical counselors. So just making sure that we can do that. We can take people outside. We can take them in other rooms. We can be one-on-one with them if they're needed. And then I think that the third thing, we honor spirit. And we know that mushrooms, psychedelics can induce mystical, spiritual experiences. We know that these are spiritual, mystical beings. Since the beginning of time, they've been used for spirituality, rites of passage, etc. And so we do bring spirituality, not religion, but spirituality into our ceremonies. And a lot of what we do there is, Peg had mentioned a song that we sing, but Peg, actually, I might just turn it back over to you to tell a little bit about that song and, the beautiful spirituality and mysticism around that.
Yeah. I'll before I launch into that, one of the things that has really impacted me personally is I grew up as a young kid in Ethiopia. My dad was working in education there in the 70s. And so I fell in love with this country. It's an ancient country. It's the birthplace of civilization. It's the only country in all of Africa that was never colonized. So you have this really unbroken ancient lineage of spirituality in this country, right? So they have Jewish Ethiopians that came from the descendant of Solomon, from the Second Temple from 500 BC. A group of them live in Ethiopia. It's the only African Jewish lineage that's accepted in Israel is Ethiopian Jews. Very fascinating, right? They have their own form of Christianity called Ethiopian Orthodoxy, untouched by Roman Catholicism, right? And in that form of Christianity that happened in the very first century, it was just this organic kind of flow of the faith. They really developed a unique framing, and it's really connected with me. And their framing of God is that the divine is not up there in the sky, that you have to ask that divine to come in you. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church believes you are born with the divine within, and that our life traumas and our events cloud you over from recognizing the divinity that's already there. And so the idea is that the process of spirituality in Ethiopia is breaking the layers that prevent you from recognizing your own divinity. And that, to me, I can get on board with that, right? This is the idea that everyone has access to the divine, not because it's a kind of belief system of like, I've got to believe X, Y, and Z in order to get saved, right? They don't believe in that. They don't believe in that kind of concept of salvation. They believe in this recognition of the divinity within. And so to me, that's the kind of spirituality that psychedelics invite us into. They invite us into a way of working with spirit that says not the spirit is out there somewhere and I've got to do whatever things to get to be holy enough. But the psychedelics begin to awaken the divine within. So it's like a bird within cracking through those layers to come out, and your divinity you can access from within. And so when we talk about we honor spirit, we're honoring the process of each individual recognizing this beautiful divine presence within all of us. And that is an empowering action that has nothing to do with belief, has nothing to do with checking off a box, has nothing to do with morality or some kind of performance.
Mm.
It's a recognition of who you already are before anything else has happened. And so we try to nurture that in our ceremony. And so we have this really beautiful song that was given to us by one of our First Nations teachers. His name is Winchester. And should I, Dan? I'll tell the quick little story here.
Yeah, please do.
It's cool. So in one of our ceremonies in December, Dana was actually facilitating and was outside with one of our participants, and just here right on our lawn, like it's, we live on a farm, but right on our lawn, this lady just picked up this giant hawk. A dead hawk had just died on our property, and like I've never seen that before. She picked it up. She was a biologist, and she said, "Oh, this is a sharp-shinned hawk, very different than a red-tailed hawk, Peg." Now she's on like 4 grams of mushrooms right now. So, and she has this incredible experience with this hawk and this divine message all around death and dying and forgiveness and healing from past abuse. And it was just an incredible experience for her. And she let the hawk go, let it be, went back to, her journey. Now I'm stuck with this dead hawk. And what do I do with a giant hawk, right? So I reached out to one of my Indigenous friends and I said, what do I do with this hawk? I can't just throw it away. And he said, no. It came to you during ceremony. There's certain things you have to do. So you have to, in essence, pluck its feathers and remove them and then give it to our community. And we'll work with the feathers and we'll do something with it. But Peg, whatever you do, you have to sing over the hawk before you take its feathers off. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've never sung over a dead animal. He said, this is really important in our culture, that if you're going to do this, then you have to sing a song that allows this hawk spirit to ascend to the next level. It needs a song to ride on. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I held this hawk in my hand and I didn't know what to do. And in that moment, I had a phone call from another friend, completely different guy. And he said, hey, Peg, I'm calling you. He's an Indigenous healer. And he said, I'm calling you. I don't know why I'm calling you, Peg, but I have to give you some song or something. I'm like, what are you talking about? Who told you this? He said, I was woken in the middle of the night and I recorded a song on my phone. It's an Indigenous song from my people. It's a gift to you. You need it right now. And I was in tears and I just said, wow, I can't make this kind of stuff up. I'm sitting with a hawk and I'm supposed to sing over this hawk. And so this is the song he gave me, and I was able to record it and play it with a drum and do this ceremony over the hawk. And so this song is now a song we use in our ceremony. It was a gift to us, and it's a gift from the Shiem people. And so we just want to honor the Shiem First Nation people and their lineage and history and their generosity of being able to work with us as colonizers, to be able to say, like, it's unbelievable when you think of this, right? We've come to them, taken their medicine from them, criminalized this kind of spiritual practice, right? Their ancestors were killed in the 1800s in our community for doing this kind of medicine work. They were called devil worshippers and witches and sorcerers for using these kind of substances. And now they're gifting us with teachings and reciprocity and love, and it's in the generosity. It's an incredible story, and I just have so much love and respect for the Stolo people and for how they are showing up, leading us, and sharing their medicine ways with us. And so, yeah, I just want to honor them today as incredible leaders that Dana and I just really honor.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. It just takes us right back to community. I think mushrooms, community, 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 community. We see it so often. People that have mental health and depression, that's the number one reason, is that they don't feel like they belong somewhere.
Yeah.
And you are creating this beautiful community and healing, for anyone who wants to explore that. I mean, thank you for doing the work. I think it's beautiful.
Ronnie, on that point too, it doesn't stop with your gathering group. Your gathering group is 12 weeks long, but then we have a lifelong alumni community. So you can continue to stay in community with like-minded people. We offer things like meditations, just general chats, mantras, all sorts of different resources. And then we have alumni specific programs like a condensed gathering group if you wanted to go through it again, like microdosing for psychedelic integration, other groups that you can join within the community as well. But that community that you join when you come onto gathering groups, we've got you for life. Like you've got a community.
Yeah, it's a lifelong integration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And tune-ups, if you want tune-ups, they're in there too.
Well, that's beautiful. Is there, before we, because our time is coming to an end, and we didn't even get to integration. So many things that we can be talking about. We didn't even get there, but maybe you could share. I know Peg said that you had a gathering happening this evening, but when will you be expecting to do another cohort if people are interested?
Go ahead, Dana.
I was going to say we generally launch at least 2 cohorts every month.
Okay.
And the 12 weeks are all online. So you can join from anywhere around the world, or you can be traveling. It doesn't matter. And then we host our retreats. Right now, we host retreats at our retreats center, which is in Abbotsford, just out of Vancouver, British Columbia. We also host retreats on the east coast of Canada, in Kingston, Ontario. And those sites will be expanding as we expand as well. So at least a couple of every month. And we have women's groups, men's groups, co-ed groups, and we are starting to niche into some other, specific areas of interest groups as well.
Okay. And then,
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I did want to quickly ask you one more question about the work that you're doing for Health Canada.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a good way to end. So yeah, we're really excited. We're part of 2 clinical trials that are starting this fall, that are really looking at a group work as kind of a modality that Health Canada really wants to explore, and they really want the clinical data on this. So we're actually part of the largest clinical trial ever done in history for psilocybin. This will be 1,000 people are going through this trial. So if you think about, I think the next largest trial was done as 36 individuals. So if you think of just like the science of that, when you put 1,000 people through, on a substance, you're going to get some really good data on efficacy, safety, these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So what we recognize right away from that kind of size of data set is that Health Canada doesn't really have a concern on safety. Their doctors have said, we're willing to give it to 1,000 people, right? So the issue is not, is this going to be harmful? Well, they know it's not harmful. Is it effective? That's what they're really looking at. Does this actually change people for the better? Does it help them deal with depression, anxiety? Does it help them feel more alive? They're actually really well. It's a wellness study, which is really cool because it's not based on a DSM-5 diagnosis to get in, which is the first time as well that we're studying psychedelics for wellness, not for does it help me with my my depression? It might, but this is looking at a larger understanding of sleep, wellness, joy, vitality. Do I feel alive? Does this enhance my marriage? Does it make me more present as a parent? These are the things we're really studying, right? So we're really excited about that. So one is with it both for us, we're really working with first responder population. We have decided that this opportunity to do this clinical trial, we've selected this population because we really want to prove to Canadians that this is not only a safe medicine, but it can connect with the average population that is really underserviced by mental health services, our first responder population, firefighters, police, veterans, ambulance, nurses. So we're really excited to work with this population and really show them how this medicine can be used as a really powerful way to help you process some of these deep traumas, these deep anxieties, these deep fears that people have, that because of the nature of their work that they get so overwhelmed by this stuff. This becomes an incredible tool to be able to allow this stuff to move through you so you can show up with your heart open at home, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, we're excited about that, and we'll be launching those, and hopefully we'll be recruiting maybe in August. So stay tuned. We're until Health Canada gives us the final ethics approval for how we're going to recruit. Then we can come and go out to the masses and say, hey, if you know someone that wants to get access to legal psilocybin through a clinical trial, this
Yeah.
is going to be an opportunity.
Wow, it's just amazing, incredible work. Well, Dana and Peg, thank you both so much for being here and spending this time with me and with our audience. Thank you. I hope I get to speak with both of you again because we still have so much to cover.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Rani. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for
Thank
inviting
you.
us.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll see you all in the next episode.